This episode of Crypto Over Coffee is brought to you by iTrustCapital, the go-to place for US-based crypto investors to invest in crypto within an individual retirement account. You can earn $100 in Bitcoin as a funding bonus by signing up via the link in the description below. In today's episode of Crypto Over Coffee, I'm talking about the massive upcoming Cardano Vasil hard fork, some altcoins I'm watching really closely, our usual 404 Logic Non-Found segment, and more. So make sure you stick around for all the updates we've got in store in today's show. Now, if you like crypto, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification button, or you can follow the podcast on your platform of choice if listening is your thing instead. Now, better yet, if you are a subscriber to the YouTube channel and you leave a comment on the video as well, you'll be entered to win a random draw for a Keystone Pro hardware wallet. So make sure you're leaving a comment if you're watching the video. And finally, just a friendly reminder, as I do every single week, please be aware of scammers that are across all social media platforms pretending to be me, impersonating me, asking you for money or personal info. In particular, if you get a comment on YouTube that asks you to contact me on WhatsApp, please just report it, and please be safe out there, folks. Now, this past week, we got some major updates out of the Cardano camp related to a pretty significant upgrade coming to the network by way of the Vasil hard fork, which is actually named in honor of the late Vasil St. Dabov, a Cardano ambassador who passed away in late 2021. Top quality person, by the way. Please rest in peace. Now, this Vasil hard fork is the most significant upgrade to the Cardano mainnet since the advent of smart contracts via the Alonzo hard fork. And it's going to bring a slew of new features to the core of the ledger, to smart contracts, and network parameter changes that will help improve the performance and developer experience in the world of Cardano decentralized applications, and in turn will have value to everyday users. I will say, though, the features that are getting the least attention are actually the ones that are the most significant, so stick with me and I'll explain why I think that. In a recent community update, the Cardano team revealed that they had reached code complete status on the features for the Vasil hard fork, and that it would be launching or landing in mainnet on or around June 29, 2022, after concluding the rigorous integration testing that's required before shipping huge features like this. Some of the notable features are ones we've talked about on the show before, and one of those in particular that a lot of people are excited about is called pipelining, which is a monumental upgrade to the proverbial circulatory system, if you will, of Cardano's mainnet that manages the propagation of new blocks and transactions throughout the network from node to node. This will bring a noticeable increase in performance to the network and set the stage for future updates like input endorsers that will enable further performance improvements via pre-constructed blocks, so more efficiency throughout. In addition to pipelining, there are some additional ledger layer components or improvements like UTXO on-disk storage that will bring improved performance, and rumor has it that an early version of the Layer 2 Hydra will be available at this juncture as well. June seems a little early for that, but we shall see. On the smart contract side, things get even more significant because several Cardano improvement proposals, or CIPs, are also going to be included in this hard fork. And these are going to be really powerful tools for the developers of new and existing dApps on Cardano to improve the performance and the user experience of these apps that they've built. And these CIPs are the hidden gems of this update, not pipelining or some of the other fancier sounding things. These CIPs will have the most monumental effect on Cardano's dApp ecosystem. Here's why. The most notable of these few CIPs that are included in the fork are CIP 31 and CIP 33, which define standards for reference inputs and reference scripts, respectively. What you need to know about these features is that they work in tandem to drastically improve the mechanisms developers can use to interact with the blockchain and build efficient dApps. Reference inputs themselves from CIP 31, in essence, are a modification to the way a developer can access data from an unspent transaction output, or UTXO. In Cardano, this information is stored in a transaction parameter called a datum. Now, with reference inputs, users or developers can access information within that datum without spending the containing transaction output, which will relieve one of the main concerns around the whole one operation per block thing that we've been hearing about since the advent of DeFi on Cardano, a concern around scalability there. To better make use of reference inputs for performance improvements in other areas, reference scripts, defined in CIP 33, defined a mechanism to use this newfound way to access datum information without spending an output in order to reduce the size of transactions containing scripts. In Cardano today, transactions often contain the script pertaining to an output during execution of some logic, which means that larger scripts or multi-script transactions are either expensive or impossible. Reference scripts now use the reference input functionality to reference the relevant scripts for a transaction without actually having to include those scripts in the transaction itself, which reduces transaction size right from the jump. This, of course, also brings better scalability and more flexibility for developers to build new and unique applications with these features. Now, these features aren't sort of automatically adopted. They need to be manually adopted by developers to really have an effect. So it's going to be critical that Cardano developers get up and running with these features quickly, especially when they're launched in testnet here really shortly. There are also parameter updates in the works. For example, I think very soon we'll see, ahead of the hard fork, the Cardano block size limit raised again from 80 kilobytes to 88 kilobytes to give a bit more headroom within blocks for more transactions and larger transactions as needed. And cumulatively, all these features work to improve the performance and accessibility of Cardano's mainnet for users and developers, and they bring really important and much needed changes to the smart contracts environment that will alleviate a lot of the pain that's felt by those building DEXs and lending and stuff in the DeFi space on Cardano. Now, I always hear the same complaint about Cardano's price and how these features and things don't move the price, the project's dead, all this. I'll make this clear as day. I don't care about the price in short timescales like this. I like the technology and the architecture behind Cardano. That's where my interest lies. If everything's about price for you, that's fine. But from a technical point of view, I'm really stoked about what's been announced this past week, what Cardano is built to be, and I look forward to seeing all this in mainnet. So there's that. Now, for our crypto market update, I wanted to hone in a little bit on Bitcoin because, as you know, where Bitcoin goes, much of the market follows. And last week, I know some people were a bit irritated that I poured some cold water on the bull run talks, but I did that with good reason because there are a lot of risks right now in the market, and we saw some of those risks rear their ugly head in our retracement down below 40K in the days that followed. And as we speak right now, Bitcoin is right above the 40K mark, and it's been fairly robust in its support at that level. One of the biggest narratives right now, though, is the resurgence of institutional interest and whale interest in buying Bitcoin and holding Bitcoin, with large quantities of Bitcoin flowing out of exchanges fairly consistently of late, like we saw in March, to be honest. We even had a huge 30,000 Bitcoin outflow from Coinbase Pro this past week, which was widely reported, as you would probably imagine. The other narrative here is Terra, which has been consistently purchasing Bitcoin from the open market to bolster its reserves for its native stablecoin ecosystem, and they've bought a ton of Bitcoin. In the absence of consistent exchange outflows and this buying pressure from Terra, the story could be fairly different from what we're seeing right now in the markets, though. And what I see right now is a heavily conflicting set of circumstances. On one hand, you have macroeconomic conditions that spell doom and gloom for risk assets like Bitcoin and crypto. And on the other hand, you have supply and demand dynamics for assets like Bitcoin and other cryptos that scream positive price action. What this all boils down to is market behavior. Do whales and institutions sell and cap their gains, or do they keep buying as a means to insulate their holdings from inflation and other economic forces? This kind of feels like a moment of truth for the crypto markets. Which narrative will prevail, and what place will crypto have in the future as things become more and more uncertain? In other news, the powerful DEX aggregator 1inch just recently marked its expansion of service onto the Fantom network, which is a pretty significant event for both Fantom and 1inch. First of all, Fantom is well known for its lightning-fast Layer 1 network that's home to some of the most top quality DeFi protocols that one can use, great yield earning opportunities, and there's a reason why crypto investors have flocked to Fantom over the last year or so. 1inch itself provides an aggregated experience for DeFi users that routes transactions to the best priced decentralized exchanges across the list of exchanges on the platform. With Fantom dexes like SpookySwap, Geist, Spirit Swap, Beethoven X now available on 1inch, you're looking at some really appealing options for users of 1inch that are looking for the best prices, both on the target and source assets as well as fees. As you probably know if you've used Fantom, Fantom thrives on low fees, so that will certainly be a welcome addition to the platform for those who are looking for low fees. What's even more significant here is this integration will give users access to yet more liquidity for their DeFi endeavors, truly leveraging this concept of composability and open borderless financial services, with 1inch serving as this interface across several networks and their DeFi cornerstones. So really cool stuff here. Excited to see what happens in the wake of this news. In other news, one of the projects that I still think flies well under the radar but is building a really important utility for the crypto world is EPNS, or Ethereum Push Notification Service. Full disclosure, by the way, since I last covered this project, I did invest in their recent fundraising efforts because I'm very passionate about what they're building. So transparency is important, so I thought that would be an important thing to note. Anyway, EPNS is building utility for blockchain-based platform-agnostic notifications triggered by a variety of different events and processes that happen in the world of blockchain and crypto. With EPNS, one can receive notifications straight to their device with price threshold notices, liquidation notices, trade completions, and all sorts of other programmable notifications to make the user experience around decentralized applications far, far better. Every day, I'm sure you receive notifications on your phone or computer, and you do that to take action. I mean, this video might have popped up with a notification. This is a really important UX component that's missing in crypto today across a lot of platforms. And since going into mainnet earlier this year, EPNS has just released information about the V2 version of their smart contracts that dictate channels and functionality for notifications from those channels. And some of these new features center on bringing the native push token into the forefront as a utility on the platform to pay for things and to set things up. And others are simply milestones outlined in the EPNS roadmap, like wallet-to-wallet messaging, which enables one user to basically chat directly with another via their wallet using the EPNS protocol. And finally, I want to applaud the EPNS team for partnering with Decentraland as the builder for the core communication protocol that will serve the Decentraland metaverse. This is a pretty exciting partnership, and I can't wait to see EPNS's technology in action at the core, at the heart of one of the OG metaverse projects here in the future. Now, last week in Rational Reactions, we talked a little bit about the SEC's latest move that's drawing some serious ire from the crypto community and, of course, the main crypto think tanks and lobbyists in the crypto space. So here's what happened in a nutshell. The SEC released a document related to a rule proposal that would redefine what constitutes an exchange in the SEC's purview from what it's defined today as, which is basically bringing together orders and effectuating trades, to a much more nuanced definition, a theoretically broad definition of bringing together buyers and sellers by way of making available certain communication protocols. A lot of little quotes and subtext there. The new proposed language is broad, it's complex, and it's subject to interpretation, and that seems to be the exact point of it. If you're not already thinking what I'm thinking, this new proposed language could and likely would be used against DeFi developers and even fintechs to an extent as to, I guess, who could be argued are creating communications protocols to bring together buyers and sellers. In response to this proposal, the nonprofit CoinCenter issued a stern rebuttal and call for reconsideration, citing the First Amendment concerns around freedom of speech. So here's a little excerpt from that piece, which I've linked in its entirety in the description. You should definitely read it. Quote, "This rulemaking aims in part to expand the definition of exchange in order to encompass additional financial services organizations. The way it does so, however, would create an inappropriately broad standard for registration that would impose an unconstitutional prior restraint on the protected speech activities of countless software developers and technologists." End quote. CoinCenter also went on to bring forth several legal precedents and examples all the way up to a Supreme Court case that supported the argument that this particular proposed rule is unconstitutional on grounds of violating speech protections. No matter what the SEC says to the contrary, This just gives more credence to the growing fears that the SEC is on a mission to gain oversight and crushing power over DeFi and broad swaths of crypto and maybe even fintech. That's concerning to say the least. So this one's going to be a developing story at least that I'll keep you updated on as new things happen. Now, it is time for Rational Reactions, a new segment on the show where I read headlines from tech and crypto-related publications and give you my instant, hopefully, rational reaction. So let's switch over to the computer and we can dive into those stories for today. Now, the first story of the day is from CoinDesk. The first story is from CoinDesk. So the headline reads this: TornadoCash adds Chainalysis tool for blocking OFAC-sanctioned wallets from DApp. The blockade only applies to the TornadoCash front end, not the underlying smart contract, one of the protocol's founders later tweeted. Now, this is just an example of how a decentralized application, so an application built in the blockchain and crypto space, is now starting to use tools to cooperate with some of the standard regulatory activities, right? Here, you're looking at the OFAC sanctions list as a way to sort of say, hey, this person you cannot facilitate transactions for, you cannot, and no one can transact with this person, right? If you are following this sanctions list. Now, what's interesting about this is that this is showing the clear path that we are on right now. You're going to start to see more and more DeFi protocols starting to do this. More dApps in general starting to do this, in my opinion, because you're looking at people who are trying to say, us as developers, as open source developers, anything we create, except for our smart contracts, anything that we create that users are using day to day to actually effectuate transactions or trades or transfers, these are compliant. So the front end interface for TornadoCash here is blocking usage from OFAC sanctioned wallets. You're going to see others doing the same thing. And there's a lot of people that hate this idea. There are a lot of people that love this idea, very little in between. But from my perspective, this is going to continue to happen. And this is just one of the first big examples of something being done at the interface level to comply with these types of regulations. So very interesting stuff. Wanted to point that out because I think it is a pretty indicative of what may happen in the future. The next story of the day is from Cointelegraph. Facebook whistleblower warns metaverse will repeat, quote, all the harms. Frances Haugen, Facebook whistleblower at large, has now turned her focus to the metaverse. She's worried about how Meta will handle privacy and intensely sensitive information. I completely 100% share these concerns with this whistleblower from Facebook, now Meta. The biggest thing that I think people should be concerned about around Meta, actually two things. The first thing is the track record around privacy and personal information from Facebook and spying and things like that. And I don't mean it in like an espionage way. I mean it in a legally based on terms and conditions, spying on stuff that you do and trying to sell you stuff through advertisements. That track record's very bad. And so if I'm going to go from, as a user, spending maybe an hour a day on Facebook as like a power user, I can't imagine many people spend more than an hour a day on Facebook now, to potentially living half their lives in a metaverse, or 4 hours a day, or doing all their corporate meetings in the metaverse. Where's that line going to be for privacy and for personal information and for sensitive information? What protections are going to be in place for differentiating what is an ad and what is creator created content in the metaverse? These are things that I and many other people have zero trust in Meta to facilitate in a responsible way. So I think decentralized metaverses are the only answer, not metaverses and centralized metaverses. This is going to be a key pivot point for the future of the metaverse. Very interesting stuff. And last story of the day is also from Cointelegraph. Ethereum Merge, quote, a few months after June, dev clears up what's going on. This is a quote from Tim Bako. It won't be June, but likely in the few months after. No firm date yet, but we're definitely in the final chapter of proof of work on Ethereum. Now, a lot of people responded to this particular article just based on the tweets that I saw and things is like, oh, a huge delay from Ethereum. I don't really think this is a huge delay for Ethereum. If you look at when the difficulty bomb for proof of work was even set to begin again, That's in June. So it was never going to be, oh, the difficulty bomb goes and then in June, like a couple days later, we're going to get the merge. I had a feeling, I think a lot of people had a feeling, and a lot of the Ethereum developers were sort of hinting at late summer. So late summer looks the more likely. So June, few months after, you're looking at late summer, early fall. Okay, so I have a feeling that this is what's going to happen. You're going to see this merge happen in 2022 almost invariably, unless there's some huge issue. This isn't some huge delay. This kind of makes sense along the timeline. Maybe it's a little later than they thought originally, but this timeline makes sense. So there's no reason for people to be panicking or angry or saying that they're delaying or there's some big issue. I think you'd know if there were a big issue. They wouldn't even be pushing for this late summer, early fall timeline. They'd just be kicking the can down the road to winter. So I wouldn't worry so much about this. I know there's a lot of negative reaction, but shouldn't be a problem here. We're going to see Ethereum move to proof of stake this year. I'm very, very confident of that and all the good things that come with it. So that's going to do it for Rational Reactions. And we're going to move on to everyone's favorite segment, 404 Logic Not Found. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for 404 Logic Not Found. And for those of you who are as of yet uninitiated in this little firecracker of a segment, I highlight notable tech-related fails or otherwise stupid moves in the world that need to get some attention. And speaking of attention, if you want to help this episode of Crypto Over Coffee get some attention from the algorithm, robots, or droids, please hit the like button, get subscribed, follow the podcast, tell them that these are the droids that you're looking for. It tells them that this content's great, that other people might also enjoy it. So thank you very much for that in advance. Now, today's illogical soup du jour is centered squarely on the crypto gurus of the world. More specifically, how fickle and frankly unqualified most of these self-ascribed cryptocurrency gurus or experts actually are. In the world, we have natural forces that we have and that are mainstays in our lives, like evaporation, gravity, and the fact that new experts come out of the woodwork selling a course or a paid group whenever there's a bull market in some financial market like crypto, equities, and other markets. Over the last decade, we've seen countless crypto gurus come in, market their paid group, course, or book feverishly, build up a huge following, make tons of money off of unsuspecting folks, and then leave at the first sign of a market slowdown or a bear market. We saw it in 2017 even. Now, I'm not saying that every paid group manager or influencer is bad. Some of them know their stuff, but most do not have your best interest at heart, if history is any indicator. Many of these people move from hot niche to hot niche, proclaiming their expertise to make money off of people who are willing to pay for what they are selling, even if they have no clue about what they're talking about, in fact. In a year like 2021, for example, where crypto was in a huge bull market, anyone with a pulse and a modicum of understanding of what cryptocurrencies are would have had a pretty nice looking track record on paper with regards to profits and picking winners in crypto, because you could quite literally close your eyes and throw a dart at a board and pick winners in that type of environment. Just like in 2017 with the ICO boom, when things unravel and it gets harder to pick winners or the market takes stark drops, many of these gurus go silent or they move on to the next hot niche. They stop making content. What's so illogical about this is really twofold. One, these self-proclaimed gurus actually think that their rather unethical practices will just be forgotten as they hop and skip from one profit machine to the next. And two, the fact that people actually still buy into this garbage and enable these gurus to keep doing what they do. Frankly, it just doesn't make any sense. There's so much free content out there to learn how to make decisions for oneself. So why listen to someone who wants $5,000 for a once-in-a-lifetime crypto investing plan, or $100 a month for a membership to their Discord channel where it's mostly pump and dumps? I mean, I'm all for creating a community, as evidenced by what I do here, but I can't rationalize charging exorbitant prices and claiming to be some master while giving out financial advice I can't possibly hope to guarantee. Am I missing something here? I mean, all I see is a 404 logic not found on every side of this topic, and to me, it's hard to debate. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. All right, folks, let's do some community Q&A. I always answer questions from folks who watch the show, and I've got some questions from last week's episode that I'm going to answer. And I want to remind you that if you have a question that you want answered, leave them in the comments below on YouTube, or if you're watching or listening on the podcast platforms, you can tweet me at Hashoshi4 as well. I do actively monitor that as best I can. So let's dive into these questions and see what we've got in stock for the day. All right, first question of the day is from Eric Drake. Does investing into crypto IRA or individual retirement account count towards the $6,000 max allotted each year, or is it completely separate? So this is a great question. Fair warning, I'm not a tax professional, first thing. Second thing, investing in crypto in your retirement account is risky, just like investing in crypto in other places. Be careful. Now, investing in a crypto IRA or individual retirement account in the US does count towards your max contribution limit. Everyone's income will affect how much you can contribute. You might not be able to contribute anything to an IRA. You might have to roll over. There's a lot of different options out there. That's why you need a tax or accounting professional to help you make sure you are following the rules. When you're using something like iTrustCapital, who sponsors the channel, I'm a big fan of that platform. I use that platform. I don't just promote it because I think it's interesting. I use it for real myself. When you're using that, you are contributing to an IRA that counts towards that allotment in your tax year. So make sure that you are working with a professional to make sure you're doing everything by the books. Make sure you're not contributing in a way that is violating some of these rules. It's very important. But anytime you're contributing to a self-directed IRA, which is what this is, or an IRA offered at some financial institution, it's counting towards that limit. Making sure that you can contribute to an IRA is prerequisite to all of that. So thank you very much for that question. Great question. Next question is from Staggered Potato. Hello, sir. Have you heard of Stacks? If so, what do you think given BTC adoption? So if I'm not mistaken, Stacks was originally called, I think it was Blockstack, maybe? Anyways, I was an early contributor to a lot of content in the Blockstack space, and I think that this is correct. I mean, I lost track of it after a while, but I think it went from Blockstack to Stacks. Maybe I'm crazy. But when I look at Stacks, I think one of the most notable things that's happening in that space right now, outside of sort of the Bitcoin adjacency, is the CityCoins project. So Miami Coin and some of these other city cryptocurrencies are utilizing tools and using the Stacks platform. That's a pretty cool thing. And I think that a lot of cities are moving in that direction right now. A lot of municipalities are doing the same thing, thinking about how they can adopt crypto at the grassroots, provide benefits to their citizens, and integrate it into a lot of the processes that they have already. I am really interested to see what Stacks strategy ends up being from now until the next, until 2025, the next few years, because Stacks has changed a lot over the years, if the lineage that I've described is correct, in the sense that some of the core ethos has always been the same, but the way that they've gone about strategically gaining adoption and making their impact and making their mark has kind of varied over the years. So I'd love to see them hyper-focused on, providing sort of ancillary services to the Bitcoin world and providing that sort of CityCoins, like that intersection between the traditional world and the crypto world, and sort of serving as that mesh point between those two things. But overall, pretty interesting stuff. The CityCoins project, I am a fan of. Rough start at times for some of the CityCoins, but I think there's a lot of potential there. Thanks for your question. And the last question is from William Wade. What's the difference between the Ledger S Plus and the BC Vault wallet you reviewed 2 years ago? So the Ledger S Plus is sort of like the latest Ledger hardware wallet. And actually, I'm going to be reviewing that and posting a review fairly shortly. So make sure you stay tuned for that. I've reviewed all the Ledger wallets and they're mostly pretty darn good. So the Ledger S Plus is sort of in between the Ledger Nano S and the sort of flagship Ledger Nano X. Ledger Nano S Plus is sort of supposed to be that middle ground, that like perfect wallet for the masses, right? Most people should be able to use it. Pretty premium wallet, not the bottom of the barrel, but also maybe not the top end, right? Where you get the Nano X. So you'll see a lot about that coming out here shortly in this review. The BC Vault is a totally different beast. The BC Vault is a completely wildly different hardware wallet model. It's not focused on being sexy hardware, doesn't have Bluetooth or a touchscreen or anything really all that special from the perspective of like the interface, right? What it is a non-deterministic wallet, meaning you have a private key that gets generated on the device, and you don't have the hierarchically deterministic wallet or HD wallet capability. So you don't have a seed phrase. That's the key. So there's no seed phrase to remember. There's no 24 words, 12 words, 16 words, 18 words. There's none of that. You are generating a private key on the device. You can create an encrypted backup of that on an SD or in a QR sort of format. And from there, your BC Vault is used as normal to sign transactions through their companion app. The BC Vault, to me, is a really solid piece of hardware that's focused on being a vault. It is supposed to be a vault and to store crypto long term. A lot of hardware wallets now are supposed to be secure, yes, but they're meant for day-to-day use. And so they differ a little bit in design decisions. The BC Vault plus a wallet like the Ledger Nano S Plus, for example, or the Trezor Model T, that's like a perfect combo, right? Right now, I've been rocking with the BC Vault for my long-term storage of Bitcoin and some of the other blue chips that I have that I just don't touch. That's like my reserves. Plus, I use a Kobo, well, not Kobo now, it's Keystone, a Keystone Pro wallet. And then I use a Trezor sort of day-to-day for little things with MetaMask using hardware wallet integration. So that's kind of the setup I've been using recently and really enjoying it. And the Keystone Pro actually works with MetaMask, so there's pretty much no reason to use the Trezor anymore. Those two wallets are pretty great. So excuse the randomness and the sort of rambling about wallets, but that's just where my head is at in the wallet space right now. Main difference between the Nano S Plus and the BC Vault: Nano S Plus, probably better user experience, more focused on the day-to-day, more coin support. BC Vault is supposed to be highly secure, highly resilient, highly durable. Use that for your long-term storage that you're not going to be using necessarily day-to-day. So there's that. I want to thank you so much for watching this and every other episode of Crypto Over Coffee that you have watched and or listened to. Thank you truly from the bottom of my heart for supporting my channel. It does really mean a lot, and I will be here, bear market or bull market, doesn't matter. Same content, same stuff. You can expect me here every week making videos. So hope you and your family have a wonderful rest of your weekend and week ahead. Make sure you stick around for other crypto videos linked up on the screen here. And until next time, cheers.